Hi, everyone. We still have 5 minutes, so let's just keep this time for those who are still joining. And we're going to start in 3 or 4 minutes, so stay tuned. All right, so let me start. It's already time. So hi, everyone. On behalf of Ideas, I'm very excited to have you all today. Today's topic is growth hacking your ideation with Alessandro, Marianantoni. Big thanks to everyone who could join us today, and for those who are watching this video on our YouTube channel, hope you can join us next time. Before we jump into the webinar, and while some people are still joining, let me remind you of those who just joined our organization. Let me just tell you what is Ideas and what we do and why we do that. So Ideas is International Data Engineering and Science Association, and it's a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles. Our mission is to bridge the gap between academia and industry. So basically, we are very excited about data science, machine learning, AI, blockchain, and we are sharing that kind of enthusiasm with others. So we are here kind of to connect those passionate people from data science background to different people with different ideas and share those thoughts just simply to collaborate. This is our roadmap. So we started in 2016, and we're moving, and we're hosting a lot of conferences across the country. 3 years ago, our first conference was held at USC campus, and later we just started to grow rapidly, organizing conferences in different topics across the country, like in New York, Chicago, Boston, LA. The huge one was the last one that we had was so-called conference in Los Angeles. That happened on October 26th, and we are hosting this kind of conference each year. So next time, make sure you don't miss that. Apart from the conferences, we also have a lot of hackathons, online workshops, and weekly webinars, just like this one, related to different topics with interesting guest speakers. Like today's speaker is Alessandro. And you can check our website for more information. Here are some photos from, this is the first one, 2016 so-called conference. This one is in New York Blockchain Leadership Connect. We also had Chicago Blockchain Leadership I think we also had one in 2019. This one is so-called conference in Pasadena 2017. And this one last year, so-called conference. As I told you, we also have a lot of different meetups with different universities like Harvard, MIT, Stanford. So if you're a student, make sure you don't miss this kind of meetups. This is our website. Make sure you subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and make sure you connect with us through LinkedIn, and don't forget to subscribe for our YouTube channel. So lastly, let me just introduce you our wonderful speaker for today. His name is Alessandro Marianantoni. He's executive director and the founder at Accelerator in Los Angeles. He's offering programs to serve the international startup ecosystems, providing students, early stage and large stage founders with skills to grow their startups. So over the last 25 years, Alessandro has researched, designed, and developed numerous projects in many fields like entertainment, engineering, healthcare, art. He even received public and private funds from a number of different organizations like UCLA, Google, Siemens, Marriott, Universal, Disney, even Italian government and city of Pasadena. So Alessandro studied computer science at University of L'Aquila with thesis on computer vision at the USC Integrated Media Systems Center. So welcome, Alessandro. Thank you so much for joining us for today. And I'm passing the whole presentation to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dalia.
Yeah, sure.
And I think you guys should start seeing me, I believe. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for the presentation. Like Dalia mentioned, I've been here in the US for several years, I have to say, here in Los Angeles specifically. Actually, thanks everybody to be here and listening. In Los Angeles, it's late afternoon right now. It's 5 p.m. It's getting dark. I was hoping to use some of the daylight, some of the sunlights outside, but it's already too late. So you may understood that I'm from Italy. I came over here about 17 years ago to do a research thesis on computer vision, exactly at the University of Southern California. And after that, I started working as a first visiting scholar, then researcher, senior researchers. And then I was also a co-PI in several projects at UCLA at a research center called REMAP, which is a joint research effort between the School of Engineering and the School of Theater, Film, and Television. So definitely, I always had a great interest of using technology for entertainment, I have to say, at large, because like Dalia anticipated, I've been working on several fields, from more private situations like theme parks, large events, up to more, let's say, public efforts with cities. Actually, cities of Pasadena here in Los Angeles, and other art projects in Europe and in the US as well. A little bit about myself in terms of my background. It's pretty strong in computer science, I have to say. So I've been developing and coding since I was really young. Probably I was already, I was around 9 when I started coding. And over basically in the late 90s, I was busy with digital marketing. I was creating websites in my small town called Rieti in the center of Italy. And I've done that for several years until I moved to the US. So just to say that I've been busy with digital marketing for a long time, since actually Google was still under the Stanford domain, I remember. A little bit more about myself. A few years ago, I think 5 years ago already, I left academia, and I already had another company, Meteors, for which I consult and develop installations and technology solutions. And recently, 3 years ago, I bootstrapped and opened Accelerator. At Accelerator, we have several programs, and we help startups at different stages, even from the ideation stage. So it could be actually students with an idea, or researchers with a project that wants to know more, gather more tools and skills in terms of bootstrapping a real business. Together, we also work with actual proper companies, early stage startups. There are the level, essentially these are companies that being either validating the business already, they are about to validate it, or they even passed the validation phase. And we even work with companies after so-called Series A's, so large companies with 100 employees. That said, I've been always passionate about transforming ideas into tangible projects, and that's perhaps the main motivation that led me to open Accelerator. Let me share my screen now. And what it takes, so we're talking about startups, right? So we know that 95% of startups fail, and 42% of these 95, so almost half of them, they fail essentially because they're not able to reach the market. Either the product is not structured, it's not designed in a way that is not usable, but most times it's mainly because the product created is not really doesn't represent a fundamental value for the market, for the people at the end. So we really, at the Accelerator, we try to bridge the gap between the market and the ideas, and so for the products that startups are building. But how to, if almost half of the startups are failing because they're not able to reach their markets, and like I said, it means that it's not a good idea. How to create good ideas, right? So definitely this one has to do the way I like to describe it, and the way we're articulating it at Accelerator. It's through definitely a lot of creative aspects, right? So we know that to create good ideas, we could combine other ideas, like many other examples of large companies, IKEA, for example, Uber. Transportation was already there, but decentralization system, and perhaps combining with transportation, and that's Uber, if we want to see it from that way. Other things, other sort of hacks that we recommend, or we like to highlight to our participants in the process of generating ideas, Sometimes it's just you want to go through your daily routines, or you want to go just through your experiences and try to find problems that you find that you had, and perhaps that you would like to create a solution for. So the problem, it's really at the center of our let's say, mission, and it should be at the center of any startup ideation process. So startups want to solve problems, and if these problems if these problems are important for a certain number of people, so for a specific market, it means that, you know, it could be definitely a good idea working on that, so towards that solution. Perhaps, I mean, I'm talking to, then there will be a Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to start typing your questions in the chat. But if I participated already, I was one of the speakers at the conference last October, Dalia was mentioning about, and there were researchers, there were students. Definitely, if you are already involved in research, if you're already doing exams, if you already have projects, hands-on projects at the university, you're already kind of solving some problems, right? You're already working on some ideas, and that's definitely a great start. I also, myself, I remember I tried it as much as I could to transform projects I had for my exams into actual products, not necessarily companies, but definitely products that eventually grew and generated some revenue, generated some business, generated some income also for the people that were involved in these projects with me. Another aspect that I would like to recall is that this creative process, it's actually a job. I mean, it's not something that you be struck from an idea. Oh yeah, a light bulb. It's kind of, you need to train yourself in terms of being creative in such regard, in terms of coming up with ideas that are somehow compatible, that are responding to certain problems, issues for a target market, I would say, right? So I've been slowly, I'm adjusting the language. So, we know that you don't have to be a genius. I've been collecting some data about it, and we know that 80% of the population has the same creative potential, and 40% of them actually has the same creative potential of so-called certified geniuses. And usually, you know, if you're already there, if you're listening, you definitely belong to the 40%. So don't worry. We have enough brain capability to be creative as any other certified geniuses. And so my question is, are you guys working on a project? I'm curious to hear your ideas during the Q&A perhaps, or after the Q&A. Feel free to follow up. I'll make sure to share my email. This is a picture of our participants during the program. And how to, let's go a little bit more into the right terminology. So how to validate and bootstrap ideas. There are some elements like if you are there listening, eventually you already know that there has to be a certain almost infinite passion about the issues as you are trying to solve. You have to be persistent. Definitely, I'm not gonna talk about these topics. I'm not gonna write any dissertation about it, but we know that it's involved a lot of work. A lot of work has to be done. Especially, I'm working with startups, I'm working with students, I'm working with projects, and most times there's not really much money involved. So all of these either students or early stage startups, they don't have a budget. And one recommendation, even before start to be a bit more worried about designing your business, it's to make sure to have to track your expenses, right? Because when the budgets are really low, and you basically will be working for several months on your project before it becomes before you're going to make some money out of it. So one of the actually, it's probably the second reason why startups are failing is because the founders don't have this kind of accounting expertise, and they are not really good into tracking expenses. So definitely you want to, when there's no budget, you want to make sure to track your costs, your business expenses. Running an accelerator. So I mentioned where I come from. I come from software development. I come from somebody. I still am somebody that works on products. So there is building a solution, and now I'm actually closer and definitely more engaged with investors. So with the other side of the wall, and something that I learned and that I believe it's really valuable to tell to you guys, perhaps I was like you, right? So it's that it's not that difficult at all to find investors. I mean, it's now that I'm here, I can definitely tell that it's way more difficult to find good projects to present to investors. And that's happening, and that's pretty much the problem I'm solving with Accelerator. I'm searching, filtering ideas, and then we are helping these participants, these teams in bootstrapping and validating their businesses so that we can make tangible and useful introductions with investors. A little bit more about the investing aspect is that we work with mainly with internationals. So I'm from Italy. I live here, and definitely I connect with a lot of internationals. Something that I can say is that probably the US is one of the few, if not the only country that is still investing in ideas, that you can actually find investors interested in investing in ideas. But it's half of the truth. I mean, the other half is that if you are validating and bootstrapping your project, it gets easier. And what it actually means in validating and bootstrapping. There's not, as much as I've been working in this field, there's not really like a tangible, clear answer. The general answer is that you have to show that your idea and the way you're implementing your ideas somehow is validated by a market. So there's a market, there's a group of people interested in paying to receive the services or the products that you're building. So for us that are creating the creative and working with early stage projects at our program, we like to create a map of all the options, all the opportunities that each one of your ideas will be able to develop. And essentially, through this map, we like to walk with you and take choices at each step. And that choice after choice will lead you to, a proper validation and perhaps a proper bootstrapping of your project. Bootstrapping essentially means start working, start serving, start selling your products or your services. And definitely we're talking about something that we usually do is to narrow down at each let me rephrase it this way. At each stage, there is definitely an approach. At the first stage, you want to really be selective and work with a small, very small, as much as segment of target, so-called the niche. And you want to own the niche so that you demonstrate that the idea and the way you're building your idea, your project, it's valid. Essentially, that's what is validating and bootstrapping a project. I'm gonna show some elements here. There are definitely from a specific angle, more technical angle, that eventually it's easier to resonate with the participants, with you during this talk webinar. So something that I like to do, probably because of my background, is to work a lot in terms of search engine optimization. So search engine optimization It's really an analogy, but in practical terms, it's it's an adaptation, it's a translation of your ideas into semantic, into meanings that your project actually, or your service actually represents. So we like to create a map of all these meanings, which at the end are words. There are talking, describing your project, and these words has to resonate with the market, with that niche I was talking about before. So if you start seeing the whole picture here, it's sort of a reverse engineering. Because search engine optimization works when you already have somebody searching for that information. So this reverse engineering somehow could validate your ideas. It could demonstrate that there's enough people up over there interested in using your services, because those are the solutions they are looking for. So I'm gonna during the few slides that I'm gonna show after, I'm gonna talk definitely about this. I'm gonna show a few strategies, a few simple strategies, especially if you're starting a project, if you're starting to validate and bootstrap your idea, and all of there are also digital marketing tools that you can use to start simply working on the project and validating. Something that I like to do before even starting to use these tools is to brainstorm and to kind of do some exercises that will help you out in developing a so-called growth hacking mindset. Because at the end of the day, if you're using the strategies that I will be recommending, some of the tools that I will be recommending, and the search engine optimization, it's not a paid advertising campaign, but it's more the investment that you're doing. It's your own time, and so alternative solutions. And nowadays they're called growth hacking solutions. I mean, 15 years ago, I believe they were not called that way, but that's the terminology now. So you want to be more. You want to be more generative instead of selective, at least at the beginning of your research. In terms of, I'm always talking about these keywords that would describe, depict your concept, your project, right? So you want to be a little bit provocative instead of analytical, at least, I mean, again, at the beginning. Later on, we need to be analytical. We need to select among all the keywords, among all the words that we generated. We want to be selected through an analytical process. We want to also find different angles to look at the problem, or to look at the solutions we are describing with our words, with our keywords. And in this way, we avoid bumps along the road in terms of all blocking issues that a sequential process could create. So we want to explore. In other words, we want to explore several approaches, several kinds of semantics. I can be more specific with the next two slides. And also, in this time at the beginning, you're free to do errors. Actually, mistakes and errors perhaps are also generating great solutions. And to remind me about that, actually, I put this photo about a tape recorder. I remember when I started coding, and also, of course, I was playing a lot with my, that time it was a Commodore 64. In the mid 80s. So I had a tape recorder. I didn't have floppy disks yet. So all the games and all the software, I was recording it on a tape recorder. And I remember that to load the software, the game into the computer, you needed to, I had an alternative brand, so I didn't have the third-party brand tape recorder, not the Commodore one. So you play, and you load the software in the computer. At a certain point, you have to stop the recorder as soon as there was a noise also, right? That's a very a specific noise. As soon as you don't hear that noise anymore, you stop the recorder and the game starts, or the software basically start running. And I remember that once I made a mistake and I stopped it before. And if you stopped it at a specific time, I discovered that the software wasn't running, but I was able to access the source code. It was a list of commands, and it was some kind of a version of basic language plus assembly. And there I actually started hacking, let's say, some of these games, changing some colors, changing some simple stuff at the beginning. So hacks happen in the way. Try to experiment, play around with the tools that we have that you're actually able to use, and perhaps something happens. So it's something that I remember, and I always like to talk about our students. Perhaps it's creates some kind of inspiration in playing around with the tools. So let's jump on into this. Let's talk about some of the strategies. So you're starting, so I mentioned already a little bit about paid advertising, right? Definitely it's not something we're going to talk about here, because I'm more interested in giving you hacks related to growth hacking and search engine optimization. So, which means that you're not gonna start, I never recommend to start a startup with a paid advertising campaign. I mean, because most times these startups don't have funds, right? So the only thing you have, it's your own time and your skill set. And perhaps if you don't have it, you're listening to this talk, to this webinar, perhaps you have enough skills ready to work on this, or enough skills to grow, to learn what is missing there. But what I recommend is to start getting a very good level of clarity about your concept, your future business. And clarity, it's clarity with words, right? So an idea is to start creating content. So you may hear, and I'm also one of them, saying that you don't need content marketing to sell, but you need content marketing to show that you are there. You need content marketing at least to tell Google that you are available somewhere online. So if somebody is looking for your solutions, they can actually find you. And if you work out your strategy with the search engine optimization and the content marketing, at least we are only investing your time, right? Not necessarily the money. So at the beginning, I recommend to start writing about the services that you do and the problems that you're solving. I'm not going to go into details about the problems. I mean, we do 2 weeks of our program only to make sure that our participants are actually gaining some clarity, very strong clarity about the problem. But at the end, just saying that if you're writing 10 articles, 2 of these articles are going to end up on your website. At 8, you have to find somebody else that will publish them. So it doesn't have to be 8, it could be 5 also. So this is the 80-20 rules that is written on the slide. So it's 20% of the content you're generating will end up being on your website, and 80% in somebody else's website or somebody else's blog. How do we find these blogs I'm talking about, right? So one trick is to use this in URL command on Google. So you actually, yeah, I did the screenshot, so you can actually type on Google in URL, and then you look for something that I typed there. It's right for us. Essentially, I'm looking for posts, blog posts that are calling for riders, right? So in this way, this is a screenshot during an example that I was doing a few weeks ago during our program. Essentially, we had somebody working on a fashion innovation, sustainable fashion project, and in this way, we were able to find, it looks like almost 7,000 guest posts of blogs, of different blogs, searching for guest writers. So in this way, you can actually find a lot of opportunities for your 80% of blog posts that would need to be somewhere else instead of your website. We do this in order to create traffic flow on your website, right? There are, of course, very specific strategies about how to select those blogs. And we want to skip to one of the last tool in the list over there, BuzzSumo. Definitely there's a trial, or at least one of the searches. It's for free. You can use it, and it will tell you which are the best blogs or the most successful blog online there about your topic, perhaps. But to do that, you can just simply use Google, right? Because if you type sustainable fashion blogs on Google search already has on the first page the most successful ones. So, or the best website, the ones that are highly ranked, the ones that did some good job in being ranked over there. And definitely they have a lot of traffic. So you want to try to ideally to be a writer, to write a guest post on those blogs. It's not easy. In fact, it's not that it's one of those tasks that you'd have to be kind of within a computational mindset, set up some tasks, repeating. You have to repeat those tasks. You have to collect a lot of possible blogs, and eventually a few of them will agree into offering you the opportunity of being to write a guest post. But you only need few, right? We don't need 1,000. We need few to start. We need few to start generating some traffic on our website. Another technique that I like to use, it's using the tool, one of the tools that are available within the Google Ads platform. It's called Google Keyword Planner. And essentially, you can, we were talking before about clarity of your business, of the problem that your business is solving. The clarity is described in words. In other words, we can say keywords. So put, even in a brainstorming modality, put a bunch of those keywords inside the keyword planner, and the result will be insights about those keywords. There will be numbers that will show you trends eventually, but numbers that will show you volume of searches every month. And a Google Keyword Planner also will give you insights about how easy it is to rank for those. More than that, it will give you insights about how competitive are those keywords. So if somebody, how many other people are actually trying to rank against those keywords. So you put together this information. It also, Keyword Planner will give you some suggestions, some other insights, and you want to keep refining those keywords until you find your own niche, essentially. At the end of the day, this is a very, I have to say, after you know how it works, you will eventually think that it's a pretty intuitive process. But most of our participants, they don't know. So I figured that us with some more experiences in using those tools, we're using it in a way that will make your bootstrapping and your validation process easier. Iteration is definitely a key over there with these tools. Another tool is much easier to use. It's a plugin for Google Chrome, Keywords Everywhere. Is over there in the list, and there's also a screenshot. You just install it on your browser, and then you start searching keywords on Google search, and the plugin will show you related keywords and also ideas, other keywords ideas, which means what is that other people are also searching that somehow is related to your own keywords. And also those are good keywords to try to understand the market. I'm slowly adjusting as we move forward. I'm slowly adjusting the language. In fact, at the end of the day, these keywords and the volume of searches are just representing the market you want to work in. So as the better you have, the better understanding for the market is definitely required. And I see these tools being a sort of a reverse engineering process. Instead of going for the Gartner or some of the agencies that have done already analysis in the market, you can start from this side, which is definitely cheaper. It's not the same thing, of course, but it will. It's pretty accurate. It's accurate enough that will give you good insights about the market you're working with, and also direct feedback on how to rank your content on Google, because at the end looks like then that everybody out of everybody looking for looking for something or trying to solve some problems, 93% of people are typing those problems and those questions on the Google search bar. So the last one, it's called Haro. I haven't seen it around in terms of advertising or being recommended, but it's a newsletter. You want to search it up online and sign up if you're interested in incrementing your authority or your somehow, your company names, your branding, even your name, your first and last name, I mean, on Google. Haro, it's the opposite than everything I said before. So it's basically journalists that are looking for quotes, that are looking for experts. So something you want to do in your field is definitely you want to be an expert of the services and products you're offering. And in other words, you want to be an expert of the problems you want to solve. And eventually on Haro, you just listen to the, wait for the newsletters, and within a couple of months, I'm sure you will have an opportunity to reply to one of the journalists over there. They are looking, or the bloggers, that are looking for comments, quotes from experts, and it's a good way to be published online, of course. A few more tools. I'm gonna go more quickly over here, and then if you're interested, we can talk more about it. But this is more like builtwith.com. Perhaps some of you may already know it, but if you're building an API, if you're building a SaaS service, if you're building any services that it's sort of a plugin for somebody's website, you can use Built With It to study your competitors. So you can check it out. You just type either the name of your competitors or the name of some of websites. You will get a list of tools that are used already on those websites, or even a list of companies that are using your competitors. So it's definitely a very interesting tool that you could get familiarity with and perhaps generate some more leads. Phantom Buster, it's an automation, marketing automation tool, and it's probably, I would say it's 50% of those automations that you guys see around social media networks are happening through this kind of automation tools, either in Integromat or Phantom Buster. So when you start following some companies on the social media, they start liking your account or your posts. Those things are happening with Phantom Buster or in Integromat. Zapier is also another automation tool. It's kind of way much easier, much simpler to set up. Phantom Buster, actually, you could be pretty clever and program, use some coding in JavaScript. Partnership, it's another, so a little bit of less tool here and more strategy. When you're bootstrapping, validating a company, perhaps even before start selling, you want to find very strong partners that eventually will help you out in creating opportunities in terms of traffic on your website or FaceTime or interaction with potential customer. How to understand which could be a good partner, you definitely need to know very well your product, your services, right? But something that we do at our program is that we create a customer journey experience. So a map. Some of you may know that there is you're building we've been talking about, I don't want to get into details, but we've been talking about target market, so the markets you eventually will work with. And some more terminology uses personas, so you want to create archetypes of your market, which are called usually personas in marketing. And a customer experience map is just an archetype of the experience that your ideal customer will go through in terms of interacting with your business. So if you have a clear idea of the experience of all the interactions that your ideal customer will have interacting with your business, eventually you will also understand where during this experience, at what point during this experience, partnership could be instrumental. It could be instrumental at the level of the awareness. It could be instrumental of lead generation. It could be instrumental in the operations of the business. There's so many other aspects. So without being too, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but you can look it up online as well, or and eventually create your customer marketing experience, or just reach out. Another tool actually that I recently found interesting almost by accident. LinkedIn is definitely a great platform for business to business. So you're looking for partnerships, you want to look up companies on LinkedIn, or you want to look at for products, eventually you will find company's name over there. But also, let's say you already know which kind of partner you need. Sometimes I just found it easier to look up on LinkedIn for those companies within they have to be related to the partnership that I'm looking for. But if at least one of those companies are looking to hire a partnership manager or somebody in the partnership department, let's say, definitely that specific company is also interested in partnerships. So this is another one. It will make it one step easier, essentially. Let's see what we have. This is the last slide to remind us that at the end of the day, we're building products and services to solve problems to people. And sometimes as somebody that's been working a lot with technology, and you guys, if you are affiliated to Ideas, you're eventually also developer. So we've been working hours and hours in front of the computer, writing code. Sometimes, and it happened to myself too, I mean, we forget about the problems we're solving. We forget, not really that, but we forget that we're solving those problems for people. So that's definitely an angle that you always want to keep in mind when you're building your solutions. And yeah, this is the last slide, actually. If you want to reach out, I'm sure it will be somewhere also in the channel, or if this talk, as this webinar is gonna will be published on YouTube, you will have opportunity to contact me, but that's my email. Feel free to reach out even after the webinar if you have questions or would like to know more about our program, and especially if you are in Los Angeles, you're more than welcome to visit us. And hopefully soon I will be also able to offer some online training. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. That was very interesting presentation. I think a lot of us got something from it. So far we have only one question from Harsh Bansal, but I'm waiting for more questions from our audience. So the question is, what is the normal challenges faced by non-tech founder?
The normal challenges, okay, let me stop the normal challenges by non-tech founders. Yeah, it's kind of to find tech partners, I would say. So it's it probably is not the same in every country, but the trend is that there's a scarcity of developers everywhere. So the non-tech founders are always mainly struggling with the development of the solution. If we're talking about tech-based project, probably this is the case, just because the context we're doing this webinar. It's a strong problem. We had at least one project even getting partially funded. Very strong partnerships, even incorporated, and then failed because of the inability of creating a solid tech team. So that's the main issue. So usually what we recommend is to get to know developers, at least to understand how they work. If you need to know, some suggestions are how to get in touch with developers. Universities are a great resource. Communities such as Ideas also are great resources. But also hackathon are the best probably resources. So just attend a hackathon, participate, join a team, and be part of the community. Something that we recommend to non-founders, not technical founders, is that especially at the beginning, unless you already have coming with certain funds, it's pretty unlikely that you will be able to hire technical people. So a good process is to develop a pretty solid pitch, so a pretty solid business plan, own at least the strategy, and be really motivated and sell that strategy to a future tech partner, perhaps a co-founder. It's easier to say than to do, but that's probably the most organic approach, because it doesn't, of course, there are lots of services that are along the way you can hire and they can develop the solution for you. But sometimes if your idea is really innovative, you really need a technical co-founder because there's a journey in place. It's pretty long. You need really somebody to share it that understands the technology. So cannot be a contractual relationship that you pay somebody just by the hour and they will provide you with a solution. Unless, of course, if we're talking about making a website, it's another discard, it's another conversation. But if we're talking about real innovation, if we're talking about machine learning on all of those things that you guys definitely are interested, just because of this community, my first recommendation is to find a technical co-founder.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. Harsh, hope your question is answered. The second question is from Sihan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Can you guide us about filing patents? How should the idea be framed and submitted? Some funds are required to file a patent and maintain its rights.
So let me understand. It's a multiple. There are several aspects here, right? So how to submit an idea. And this is not specifically to us, right? It's to, in general, any accelerator. That makes sense.
So the question is very specific to how to file the patent.
Oh, yeah. I don't have the answer to that specificity, but just because I'm aware of that, most accelerators, we also have partners that are law firms. So for example, at our program, we have Alessandro, which is one of the largest law firm offices in Los Angeles. We have a partnership, and once a month, they spend 5 hours office hours in our space, and all of our participants are free to ask them questions, also questions like those. You need, it's really hard. I did a patent, 2 patents, not recently, but the journey is not easy. There's a research, you have to understand the area in which you want to patent your project, your idea. And definitely, the way I saw it, I remember this, that you have to understand, you have to read all the patents that are in your field. And of course, we're talking about a very small niche, otherwise it's not doable. And then find an empty space and own that empty space with your patent. Now, of course, it's easier to say than to do, but at the end, it's patents are documents, and there's a lot of semantics involved. So that's why lawyers are there also to help us out with the semantics of those patents. Hopefully it will, it's kind of is helping Siddhant a little bit with some clarity.
Thank you so much for answering, Siddhant. Yeah, hope it is helpful. The second question from Alessandro: is hiring a remote tech team is still a good idea, or having a CTO in-house is essential?
So I have been there. I've been there myself. Our startups have been there. I receive every week proposals from services like East Europe, Asia, in general, India, companies that are offering their services to non-technical founders. It's at the beginning, it's not easy. If you have technical skills, if you know how to develop, if you can be the project manager of the project, definitely it's easier because at least you're speaking the same language of the engineers, and you can actually understand what is happening weekly based, how's the progress, how the development is progressing. But sometimes this is the typical situation. You're building up a document that describes all the steps. It's a project. It's a document related to the development of your project. So it's very specific. Has to be really specific on the tasks, on the requirements, features, and everything. Right. This is your first. This is your first startup. This is your first product you're building. So you have to assume that it's not, you have to leave room for iterations and improvements. So we're talking about you writing this document and giving them instructions and to do specific things. They're doing it because, of course, I'm expecting them to be really good quality, and eventually they will create a product the way you're describing it. But you have to, like I said before, you have to assume that being a startup, being at the beginning, that document, that strategy has to be improved. So you're getting back a product that essentially is not working or needs improvements. And again, look, then you have to modify stuff, and it's getting expensive. Usually, it's not sustainable for startups. If you're talking about a remote team, with engineers that you are the project manager, the lead engineers, I believe it's manageable. There's all of these motivations has to be, it's very key. You have to keep in touch with all the developers over there. But also you're asking about having a CTO in-house is essential. So I'm not sure if you could be the project manager or the CTO we're talking about, or you're actually even hiring the CTO remotely, and the CTO is the only one that is developing the software. There are many situations, right? It's easier if you as a founder are really close to your developers, especially for the first time you're in this game. I could talk for hours, but it's very general probably.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Alessandro. And thank you, Alessandro, for your question. Hope the question is answered. Another question from Sitan: after creating a product and publishing it, how to create a license and the terms and conditions that go with it?
So user licenses, I guess, or you're talking about, so license, it could be trivial here. It's like you're licensing somebody to use your product. You're licensing somebody to selling it. It's an API. Somebody is using it to build another service. Let's suppose this is for users. So I would say there are. So if this is the first time, and you cannot afford lawyers, I would recommend you to find your competitors, your product alternatives, and see how they did it, and see all the elements that they touched on. I'm sure there's always some, that depends, right? If an app, even the app, I mean, once you go over 1 or 2 million users, there are some liability exposures. So you wanna, if this is your first time and you don't have a lot of experiences, you just see other companies how they did it, especially if they are more successful than you and they invested already thousands of dollars in a business law firm.
Thank you. That's interesting. Thank you so much for your answer. And thank you, Susan. I hope your question is answered. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I think we still have time for one more question. So I'm gonna ask audience for one more question if you have one.
Yeah, and also feel free to reach out if somehow I didn't reply correctly, or your question I didn't interpret it correctly, or you have a feedback, you would like to have a further feedback about your questions. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I believe this is pretty much it because we don't have any more questions. All right. Thank you so much, Alessandro. This was very not typical presentation for today, and I think it was very helpful for most of us. Yeah. So thank you so much for this Saturday evening for doing this. This was really great presentation, and we're gonna post the whole video on our YouTube channel, so a lot more people are gonna watch it and probably reach out to you soon.
Okay, thank you, Dalia. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hopefully it was helpful. Otherwise, again, feel free to reach out. And thank you to Ideas, of course.
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to launch a small poll for us to make sure that we're doing all those webinars in the right direction. So I'm going to ask our audience to simply ask several questions regarding this webinar. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend, and hope to see you next webinar. Bye.
Bye. Have a good weekend, everyone.